Hello students, I am Poulami ma'am and welcome to Concept to Remember series of Ogroni.
In this video, you are going to learn about the characteristics of living organisms and the difference between living organisms and non-living things. Characteristics of living organisms. All living organisms are made up of cells. Cells are the smallest part in any living organisms which shows all the activities of life like respiration, growth, reproduction, etc. A living organism can be made up of a single cell. Then they are called unicellular organism. Example, bacteria and amoeba. Or they can be made up of many cells. Then they are called multicellular organisms. Example, humans, plants, birds, etc. Just like a house is built using bricks, similarly, body of a living organisms are also made up of these cells. Hence, cells are also called building blocks of life. All living organisms show metabolism. Metabolism is a series of chemical reactions that takes place in each and every cells of a living organism. It is this metabolism that keeps the living organisms alive. The entire process of metabolism can be divided in two parts: catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism is the process in which living organisms breaks down larger molecules into smaller ones, usually releasing energy in the process. For example, in respiration, large molecules like carbohydrates, with the help of oxygen, are broken down into smaller molecules like water and carbon dioxide, releasing energy for the living organism. Or in digestion of proteins, larger protein molecules are broken down into simpler amino acid molecules. Anabolism is just the reverse of catabolism, in which small simple molecules combine to form large, more complex molecules. In this process, energy is required. For example, in photosynthesis, plants use carbon dioxide and water in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll to produce carbohydrates, releasing oxygen. Or the amino acids produced during protein digestion is again joined together to form a large protein molecule to build muscles, which help in growth, repair, and maintaining body tissue. All living organisms respond to stimuli. A stimuli is any change in the environment of the living organism that triggers a response in a living organism. For example, we withdraw our hand immediately when we touch something hot. Or leaves of touch me not plant or Mimosa pudica droops down when we touch it. All living organisms shows growth, like a baby grows into a young boy or a young girl and then into a man or a woman. Similarly, a seed grows into a seedling and then into a full-grown plant. So, all living organism shows an increase in size and attain maturity, which is called growth. Growth in living organism takes place when the rate of anabolism is more than the rate of catabolism and new building blocks are added to the living organism. which leads to the increase in size and number of cells. Therefore, the growth of a living organism is internal. All living organisms reproduce their young ones. As you can see, frog eggs hatch into tadpoles. The tadpoles grow and change into juvenile frog, which then develop into adult frogs. The adult frog can produce its offspring and continue the life cycle. All living organisms, after attaining a certain level of maturity, produce their biological offspring or their young ones. Reproduction is the most important characteristic of living organism, by virtue of which continuity of life is possible. All living organisms die after a certain period of time. All living organism comes with a certain lifespan, after which they all die. Let's summarize the characteristics of living organisms that we have studied so far. Number 1. All living organisms are made up of cells. Number 2. All living organisms show metabolism. Number 3. All living organisms respond to stimuli. Number 4. All living organisms show growth. Number 5. All living organisms reproduce their young ones. And number 6. All living organisms die after a certain period of time. Let's see the difference between living organism and non-living things. Living organisms are composed of living cells, whereas non-living things are acellular. Living organisms show metabolism, whereas non-living things do not show metabolism. Living organism responds to external stimuli. Non-living things do not respond to external stimuli. In living organisms, growth takes place by adding new living materials during metabolism, which take place internally, whereas growth may take place in non-living things by adding new material from outside. For example, we can increase the size of the Lego tower by adding more blocks to it. All living organisms reproduce their young ones. Non-living things do not reproduce. There is a definite lifespan in living organisms, after which all living organisms die. Whereas in non-living things, there is no such lifespan. In our next video, you are going to learn about origin of life. Till then, happy self-study.